Meanwhile, the war in Ukraine enters its third summer of fighting. Reuters reporting this month there's been an uptick in Ukrainian drone strikes on fuel depots outside Russia. Inside Russia. Ukraine argues that oil depots and refineries are legitimate targets as they help to support Moscow's war efforts. Joining us now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He is Chief International Analyst for NBC News and former reporter for the Wall Street Journal, Russia expert Matthew Brzezinski. Admiral, I'll start with you. I just want to back up a little bit to Evan Gershkovich and to the trial that's now beginning. There's so many efforts to free Evan, to bring him home. His family is desperately waiting for him to come home. But what does this signify to you that they are moving forward with the trial?
Clearly, Vladimir Putin will continue to distort this tormented, dystopic, quote, justice system, unquote, in Russia for geopolitical gain. Lesson one, if you're an American citizen, don't go anywhere near Russia. Pay attention to State Department warnings against doing so. Number two, in terms of Evan, I think his best chance is going to be a negotiation of some kind that does a hostage exchange, if you will. Whether the U.S. can come up with somebody that would be attractive to Putin or not remains to be seen. I do know from my conversations with the administration that the situation for Evan, for Paul Whelan, for other Americans held abroad is absolutely top of mind. They'll continue to press on it. But bottom line, as usual, we learn how rotten the Kremlin is in the way they are manipulating this reporter.
Yeah, and Biden administration officials have been clear, both publicly and privately, they're still working tirelessly to bring him home. But Donald Trump's rhetoric about the matter, suggesting that Putin would release him only to Trump, deemed certainly unhelpful and, frankly, downright dangerous. Matthew, let's go back to the other story here, which is this idea of these strikes hitting Russian oil depots and the like, a fuel war, if you will. Tell us the impact, what it may have on Russia's military efforts, but also, as you know, winter will be here before we know it in that part of the world. Certainly explain to us the challenge that Ukraine has with its own energy crisis.
Well, good morning. Very quickly, I used to have Evan's job when I was based in Moscow. And so for me, it's actually personally heartbreaking what they're doing to him, using him effectively as a political hostage. Now, talking about the sort of parallel war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine, away from the battlefield, this is the energy war. As you mentioned, the Ukrainians are going after oil depots and refineries to try to hit Putin in his wallet so that he can't finance the war. And of literally every single oil depot near the Ukrainian border, they've struck because, of course, a tank with an empty fuel tank is effectively useless. Now, what's very interesting is what the Russians are doing. The Russians can't use their usual military doctrine, which is to go in and just literally level the place, carpet bomb the cities before sending in the troops. Putin is hamstrung by his own propaganda. Remember, he is going into Ukraine to save his Slavic cousins from a Nazi regime that is a puppet of the decadent West. So he can't very well kill them all. So instead, what he's going to do is going to make everybody's life as miserable as possible by targeting the electricity grid. And they have been extremely successful at doing this. They have knocked out half of Ukraine's electricity generating capacity. And what this means is now there are rolling blackouts. There are daily 8-hour rolling blackouts. And this is, as Mika might say, we Brzezinskis don't like, it's not in our DNA to praise the Russians, but this is a fiendishly clever strategy because for any of us who have gone through a power failure, the first few minutes, fine, you light a candle, it's kind of neat. Within 10 minutes, your kids are complaining that the internet is down and they're going into phone withdrawal. Now you can't make dinner. The air conditioning is off, the heating is off, the lights are off, the food is going to spoil.
Right.
You have to walk up 20 flights of stairs. This will get old very quickly. And now the Ukrainian people are going to have to endure this on a daily basis. And Ukrenergo, the main state utility, warned that in some places they could go to 20 hours a day without electricity if things don't improve. And what's going to happen very likely is, I think people's appetite for this war is going to wane dramatically, and they're going to start putting pressure on Ukrainian leaders to just, look, give them the darn territory. Let's just end this. We want our lives to go back to normal. So, it is a very, very clever strategy, and it is reasonably humane, so you're not creating a Gaza writ large in Kiev or Odessa or these places.
So, Admiral, let's get your assessment of what you're seeing here on the fuel war and then the parallel one on the front.
Let's go to the front lines for a moment. Here in recent months, Jonathan, as you know, the Russians appear to be kind of on the front foot. They were leaning into that northeast corner where the second largest city of Ukraine is located. That was then abetted by all the things Matthew just talked about. However, because the U.S. Congress finally got the $60 billion moving, that aid, that military aid is coming online, NATO allies are matching that. I think now I would score it as approaching yet another stalemate. The next big factor I'm watching for, and so are many military folks, is the addition of F-16 aircraft to the battlefield. These are the Swiss Army knives of a battlefield. They can do air-to-air combat, air-to-ground. They can do electronic warfare. They're going to start arriving in numbers over the next few months. I think that might make a difference in the ground war. And then finally, the Admiral's going to bring up the Black Sea and the naval battles. Here, there's good news for the Ukrainians. They've sunk or severely damaged almost half of the Russian Black Sea fleet, yet they don't even have a navy. They've done that with UAVs, drones, all kinds of exquisite intelligence, cruise missiles. It's really a very effective campaign, and to the economics of this, keeping the Black Sea open for shipping so that Ukraine can export its grain and keep its wallet at least marginally full is going to be a big part of this.
Retired Admiral James Stavridis and former Wall Street Journal reporter Matthew Brzezinski, thank you both very much for your insights this morning.